India's growth is exponentially rising, and it becomes essential that the full potential of its digital capabilities are realized and explored.
डिजिटल इंडिया सिर्फ एक नाम नहीं है, ये देश के विकास का बहुत बड़ा विजन है.
Amidst this, Times Network brought forth a platform for harnessing digital transformation. WhatsApp presents India Digital Fest. Future Begins Here showcased the power of digital technology to shape the future. Through specially curated sessions attended by government leaders and industry experts, the event brought forth the digital ability to surpass human imagination. In this episode, Gautam Aggarwal, Division President South Asia Mastercard, discusses India's giant leap in digital banking in an exclusive fireside chat with Aisha Faridi, National Editor, ET Now.
Gautam, welcome to India Digital Fest. Right? Tell me, what's been your experience at Mastercard over the years about how the digital banking age has evolved in the last few years?
Well, listen, digital banking is quite, fintech or digital banking, the term that we use in the last 5 years, is a phenomena that Mastercard believes has been around for 55 odd years since we've been around and others. The idea is essentially allowing money to move, if I were to use that, in a more transparent way and in a way that people can do electronically and don't have to use paper, right? Now, paper can mean cash, paper can mean checks, paper can mean, notes or whatever. So essentially, digital banking in its nascent form is nothing but that. Now, of course, the modern terminology of digital banking as we know it today is all about open banking. It's all about cyber and safety. It is beyond payments. It's now getting into insurance. It's getting into credit access, all of that. But I think with my experience, I would say for us, the thing on digital payment where it started was really with digital payments, actually.
You know, when we first talked about a paperless economy, I think that was because of demonetization. And since then, of course, a lot has changed. And, we were talking about this at lunch as well, as to how unique a market India is. Tell me, from your learnings from Mastercard all across the globe and all across other emerging market economies, how is it that you imply and implement your learnings from across the globe to a unique market such as India?
See, India has become a little bit of a learning. It's actually teaching the world how to do digital payments, if I were to say that. It's actually quite ironical if you think about it. Up until about 5 or 6 years ago, even in a company like Mastercard, when we looked at payments and electronification of payments in the consumer payment sector, I'm not talking about commercial payments because commercial payments have been electronified for a while, India was doing about only 2 or 3% of consumer transactions electronically. And those were primarily on cards, right? The rest was primarily all cash. If you went to this ice cream stand to buy the 20 rupees ice cream, you would pay cash, right? You went to Nehru Place to buy equipment for your computer for 1,500 rupees or whatever, you did it on cash, right?
You don't even go to Nehru Place anymore.
Well, I still do, actually. I'm a geek. I still do. But what has changed, with the advent of, demonetization was, of course, the beginning of it. But with the technologies such as UPI, what has changed? It has changed the mindset of people. Now people are transacting today using digital technologies, right? UPI, Mastercard are all examples of what people are using. I was in Singapore last week. I was meeting with an Indian banker, and he was telling the story that he was in, I think, one of the, either Kaziranga or Corbett, I forget which park, but, he has been going there and taking pictures of wildlife for the last 10 years. And he said up until about 2 years ago, he always had to carry cash with him to do that, right? And he told the story that now he was carrying this, this app, and there were places where he just had to scan the UPI code, if you will, or any kind of QR code, and he could just make the payment. So he said he used no cash actually in that entire trip, which was a very powerful, story that I heard from him. So I think what has happened in India is actually telling the world how to do this. Now, important thing to know about this is, if you think about it, payment technology companies such as mine, we have been at it for the last 50 plus years. However, we've made progress. But what has happened is in the last 5 or 6 years, the government has supported digital payments in a big way. Whether it is through regulation, whether it is through mandates, whatever it is, UPI's success story is a combination of emerging technology. It is a combination of technology being there, user experience being created. It's the fact that the mobile phones now exist. People have access to mobile phones. Internet connectivity exists. It's all of that. But a big portion is because the government is really pushing it hard. And I think that is something that India is teaching the world. And we are seeing this, in my just prior role before this current role, I was based in Singapore, and countries like, Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, they're learning from what India has done and putting a regulatory framework around digital payments, which we did not have. So that's what India is really teaching the world. And we ourselves in Mastercard, when demonetization happened, we were the first, I think, international player who were able to create a soft POS. What basically meant was we were able to create your smartphone into a payment acceptance device. And we took that learning ourselves from India to some of our other countries. So that was our learning in that process. So in many ways, I think India is teaching the world how to go about digital payments.
You were just talking about your friend's experience at Kaziranga or Corbett. But how long before digital penetration, and especially when it comes to banking, reaches tier 2, 3, or 4 cities as well in India? Because while you and I may not have even seen our banker's face or even gone to our banks for I don't know how many years, at least I can talk about myself, everything is digital, right? But that's not the same when it comes to Bharat, still.
So listen, Bharat, I love the fact that you're using that term, because that's a term I have been trying to use at Mastercard now as well. I'm saying let's not call it India, let's call it Bharat. So what has happened is, a combination of things. It is whether it is banks, large banks, or whether it is telecom players, they are actually now using their access in the villages to promote banking, right? So the fact that today a villager has a phone on his hand, the fact that there is education going. So education is a big element of this, right? There's a huge amount of education going on with the villagers, with the MSMEs in these villages, where we're telling them the benefits of digitization. And so I think the fact that they have a phone that is connected to the internet, the fact that somebody is coming, whether it is starting from the panchayat, whether it is happening with the village elders, the fact that bank officials are coming, telecom officials are coming, the fact that the small kirana shop today is a recharge shop, the fact that you can pay bills electronically from there, all of that is creating an experience for those rural villagers, if you will, to understand the benefits of digital and the benefits of banking. And therefore, what has happened, if you think about it, the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana started, about 6 or 7 years ago, in which I think 450 million bank accounts were opened, and people said, oh, these were all empty bank accounts. They are sitting with about $25 billion today of money in it. So they're not empty bank accounts, and that's a big number. So the kind of scale that we've seen in India in the rural sector itself is very staggering.
Right. You talked about everyone having a mobile phone, and that's pretty much a reality. They may not have a fridge or an AC at their house or a washing machine, but everyone has a smartphone, right? We're already talking 6G while we are still just about migrating to 4G, Bharat that is. What happens when we progress to 5G or when all of India becomes 6G? What would it do to the future of banking?
See, what happened in India, if you think about it, in our homes, really the phones, the landlines were something that were primarily in cities, tier 1, tier 2 cities. The villages never really got it, right? Very few houses in the villages, maybe the block secretary or the panchayat had it. And so India already took a leap forward when the first wave of wireless came about, right? Which was about 15 odd years ago now. I think what has happened since then with the transformation of technology from 1G to 2G to 3G and so on and so forth, speed has only increased, right? And we are seeing that in India. To your point, 4G is still something that is still emerging in India in many places. What will happen with 5G and 6G is two things are going to happen. One, still a lot of rural players are not using a smartphone. They're using a feature phone. So two things will happen. One, these feature phones will now be able to work faster because technology will be there for them to respond faster. Today, the feature phones that they have don't do that. But more importantly, I think what will happen is the innovation that is happening around apps today. Again, if you go back to UPI, I forget the exact term, but UPI has a version where you can actually transact through NPCI, you can transact using a feature phone. You don't really need a smartphone to do a money transfer, right? I forget what that technology is called today, but it is there, right? So you will have to continue developing those kind of technologies, but the fact that 5G and 6G will make it faster, the dispensation of banking features, if I were to say that, would be more easily available to a rural or an urban player for that matter.
But tell me, Gautam, with all this technological advancement, especially when it comes to banking, I'm sure there are hindrances as well that you face, right? Because you're operating volumes and masses of progression happening at almost a minute-to-minute basis.
Absolutely. So firstly, I think technology adoption always requires, in my mind, three things, right? People will adopt technology, if it is relevant to their needs. So it is, in that sense, innovative, that it is solving the problem that I have. Just because I have created a piece of application or solution that looks cool to me as an engineer or a product owner will not make a difference if it actually doesn't solve a real problem for the end consumer. So I think that is one of the biggest challenges of technology has always been, how do we make sure that whatever we build is actually relevant and solving a problem? And I think with this whole concept of A/B testing, user experience testing, labs that we have now globally, that is a way to make sure that whatever is being developed solves for that. The second thing, in a country like India, whatever we develop has to be inclusive. Because if you develop a solution that is only meant for a certain segment of society, it won't work. Because a country like India, it has to scale across urban and rural sectors. So it has to be inclusive in that sense. And that goes back to my earlier point that whenever, payment features were being built by these applications, they had to think of feature phones, smartphones, text-based phones, all of that. And the third biggest element within technology is the element of trust and or security. If I do not trust the piece of technology that is in front of me, or for that matter, anything, any process that is in front of me to do my job, I will not use it. Now, what happens with technology, and it has happened with digital payments also, there is digital fraud that happens. Cybersecurity is a big concern. The government, I think only in the last budget, declared 600 crores, earmarked 600 crores to actually work towards cybersecurity-related crimes.
I was just going to come to that. I'm sorry to interrupt you here, because a lot of people are still very scared of putting data and knowledge as crucial as banking out there into the digital space.
And that goes back to the point on trust, right? Yeah. So I think that's why the importance of trust. I have to be able to trust the piece of technology that I'm working with. So we, within Mastercard, and of course all of the companies that are in this space, are working on creating tools that create that ecosystem, right? With this trust being created. I was giving an example about this the other day to somebody where, up until about 2 or 3 years ago, we found a phone that could do biometrics, whether it was thumbprint or whether it was retina scan, as a very cool and secure thing. Quite frankly, it's not very secure, right? Because today, if I were to actually be able to copy your fingerprint, you've seen this in movies all the time, and I were to wear one of those things, I could get into your phone, right? There are enough ways to now develop a mask which can have your retina scan, and I can actually get into your phone. So there are other ways. So we have gone, at Mastercard, we've actually developed technologies where on the mobile phone, if you actually think about it, when you're holding your phone, there are about 1,000 variables that are different on how you hold your phone versus how I hold your phone. Yeah. So we have created technology where we are actually not only looking at the biometrics, your physical biometrics, we are actually looking at your behavioral biometrics also, to know whether it's actually you trying to log in. And I tried this home. My kids, I have young kids, and they come to me very regularly and they'll say, Babu, please show your face, and they'll unlock my phone with my phone, and I don't want them to be using everything that I have, right? So now we have a way, the technology can actually tell you whether it's me holding the phone, whether it's me pressing the phone, whether it's somebody else. So I think those kind of innovations will have to continue to happen, in parallel for you to continue to build that trust. But one last element I do want to talk about related to your earlier question is all of this will not work if the regulatory and the government support is not around there. A great example is, you will continue to have bank fraud, you will continue to have payments fraud, because something will go wrong somewhere. Somebody will be able to hack into some system. But when a fraud happens, the banking ecosystem has to have the right governance in place, where if, say, my money goes from bank A to bank B in a fraudulent manner, and bank A knows that it's gone to bank B in a fraudulent manner, there has to be cooperation between the banks so that the money can be recovered. That doesn't exist today, right? We will talk about, regulation, policies that are going towards that, But we need that kind of framework also in place for technology to be perfectly working.
But tell me, so then are you consciously at Mastercard investing more in data security? Is that an obvious?
Absolutely. So to give you a number, if I remember this right, since 2020 alone, we have spent close to $1 billion globally in cybersecurity or security-related products, whether it is we building our own products or whether we acquiring products from elsewhere. We have a whole team of people in India, 1/3 of our workforce is in India today, who are actually doing a lot of research in, cybersecurity, AI, ML. We believe in the last 2 years alone, we have actually processed about, we process about 10 billion transactions a month. In that, I would say we have actually prevented close to $30 billion worth of fraud, right? So we are, cybersecurity and security broadly is probably the second biggest pillar of Mastercard after payments, where we are focused on and, we continue to invest in.
I also wanted to talk about how machine learning in general helps banking, right? The latest buzz in the fad word is ChatGPT. Does that hinder your business in any way or aid it?
So a little fact about me is about 25 years ago, I left India to do a PhD in AI ML. And within a year, I realized back then, AI ML had no commercial, viability, right? Because it was a theory that professors love to talk about. And
are you saying it's just a walking, talking Wikipedia?
No, it was just because the compute power was not there, right? 25 years ago, or it was expensive. What has happened since then, we have a lot of compute power today, and we have a lot of data available. So AI ML is a real thing. ChatGPT is a very interesting thing. But it's not new to Mastercard. We've been using AI. I've been at Mastercard close to now 9 years. And I remember my very first day, we were talking about what our AI strategy is going to be. And we use AI in two ways. We are using AI for internal processes within Mastercard, where our back-end processes, whether it's our financial processes, whether it is our operational processes, where we are learning about the behavior of our employees and who's logging into which system, how fast are they logging in. Based on that, we are making decisions on who has access to what. So we are using AI a lot already for our internal processes. But beyond that, pretty much today, all our payment transaction, every single payment transaction that we process today goes through some sort of an AI engine today, where we are qualifying the transaction, whether it's a fraudulent transaction or not. In fact, if you use your card today, there are times where, and if you've set alerts for your card, and if you're using a physical card, you will notice you take out a card from your pocket, you swipe your card, or you tap your card, or you dip your card, whatever you do. Even before you actually take the card back and try to put it in a pocket, your phone or your email system will get an alert of some sort, whether it was a right payment alert, whether it was a AI process alert saying this is a fraudulent transaction. It happens in nanoseconds. And that has only been possible because we as a company have been investing in AI. We may have not called it AI back then. We may have called it data analytics back then. We've been investing in this for a very long time. And for us, we continue to look for ways to improve and look at other technologies that we can benefit from to bring to our fold, whether it's through investments, whether it's through buyouts, whether it's through partnerships. So it's probably the third most important thing, after security, I guess, that we spend our time on.
Gautam, when you look not 5, but maybe 10 years ahead, what role could digital currency play at Mastercard, run by blockchain?
So blockchain as a concept or technology, I think, is a very interesting technology, and we are continuing to investigate and invest in it. Whether it will be Bitcoin or something else is very hard to say. We believe that when it comes to payment instruments, we will continue to play in payment instruments that are regulated in some sort. So digital currencies that are backed by some sort of a government entity is something that we will continue to invest in, we will play in, and we would like to participate in. Blockchain as a technology, I think, has use cases beyond payments, which we are already looking at. So not many people know that Mastercard is not a payments company alone, right? We are now doing cybersecurity, as I mentioned. We are now playing in the digital identity space. So I think blockchain has a lot of possible implementations in digital identity. The fact that you and I today can do a financial transaction doesn't preclude us to do now a non-financial transaction where I just need to verify. Let's say, you go to a store buying liquor, right? And I want to verify your age. There should be a way for me to be able to verify your age without looking at your ID, physical ID, right? that is a digital identity exchange, right, that we could be offering as a service. And that is something that we could offer through blockchain, and we are exploring that as an option that we could do.
I remember about 10 or 11 years back, an experience at Shanghai when you were still mesmerized by Tesla. And I remember standing outside one of their showrooms in Shanghai. And I actually saw this one person, a local, who just went in 10 minutes, drove out a Tesla back. Everything was on the phone. Tap, 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 and you could drive out. How far are we from a level like that?
I think we are probably already there. If you look at it from the Western, it's already happening in China and the US and many countries in Europe. These things are happening. These things are probably happening at a very high cost today, right? So if your question is how far is it, how far are we from there in India? I think not too far from making it happen. The question to ask is, how will we make it affordable, right? How will the common man have access to an experience like that? I would say we're probably maybe a decade or two away from that in a country like India, because we still have to get, I was at a forum, the Raisina Dialogue, not too long ago, and we were talking about digitization and whatnot. And there was a person from one of the villages in Madhya Pradesh who was talking to me, and she said, you're talking about phones and digitization. The fact is that we still don't have electricity in our village, right? So we can be talking about all of this, but if electricity is not there, this doesn't mean anything to anybody. So therefore, when I say we are probably 2 decades away, I say it simply with a lot of humility, because I think if you want the impact of something like that to happen at that level, we are at least 2 decades away. But, whether it can happen, whether, you will see somebody in India who can afford to bring that to India, I think that can happen tomorrow.
Yeah. So is Mastercard's focus India or Bharat next?
I think it's India and Bharat. The two are, I think, both the two sides of the same coin.
Okay, we'll leave it at that, and here's to an exciting decade ahead.
Thank you.
Right? Great chatting with you.
Thank you.